Hey guys, Armando here from the Music Den. Before we launch into December album anniversaries, our final episode for 2025, I wanted to take this opportunity to wish everybody watching a very happy and prosperous new year. Since we launched the channel almost 3 years ago, Bill, Ken, Sagosh, Jim, and myself have enjoyed bringing you episodes that we feel are enjoyable, informative, and entertaining. Again, your support over the last almost 3 years has been immeasurable to me, and we hope to be bringing you more episodes in 2026 and beyond. So, once again, if you're out and about tonight, you're having a good time, please look after yourselves, enjoy yourselves, arrive home safely, and we'll see you soon in 2026. And once again, Happy New Year. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day, and above all else, that you're indeed looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, the gang are back. We are here to talk about albums that are celebrating their anniversaries for the month of December. Now, joining me in this wonderful adventure, and believe me, with these two, it's an adventure. I have Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
It's going well, Armando. Glad to be back.
Glad that you're back. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has.
Yes, yes,
Strange.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, strange but true. Yes. And also joining us for this adventure is the one and only Sagosh. How's it going, Sagosh?
All good, Amanda.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. You were
Great.
frozen there for your picture is frozen, but your audio is coming in wonderfully. There you
So
go. There you go.
there you go.
That's fine. The joys of using Zoom, ladies and gentlemen.
Isn't
There
it?
you go. Yes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have four albums to talk about. They're celebrating their 60th and 50th anniversaries, respectively. It's quite the list here that we've got. So we are going to jump right into it. Now, our first album on the list is a wonderful piece of music as a collective. We have Vince Guaraldi with the Charlie Brown Christmas soundtrack. This is Vince Guaraldi's eighth release, recorded from October 26, 1964. And also, one track was recorded, sorry, on October 26, 1964. The rest of the album was recorded from September to October 28th, 1965. And the one track that was recorded on October 26, 1964 was the one track Linus and Lucy, released through Fantasy Records with a total playing time of 34 minutes and 53 seconds. I will give my opinion on this classic release at the very end. Ken, what is your view on this release?
This album is absolutely synonymous with Christmas for me. 6 years old when this came out. It is both iconic and eternal for me. It's um, I listen to it every Christmas. I never tire of it. Um, the I don't know. It's such a part. It's become such a part of my DNA. It feels weird to talk about it because it just is what it is, and it's wonderful. I would actually say it is my favorite Christmas album. And I like Christmas music of many genres, but this is the first one that comes to mind as a child. It's just always been there. I loved the combination of original tracks and interpretations of traditional uh, Christmas songs. The O Tannenbaum or Christmas tree. What child is this? The Christmas song, the Mel Torme classic. Um,
Mhm.
I love the way 11 tracks. I love the way that they split the album. The end of side one is Christmas Time is Here, which is it's just a phenomenal song. But the instrumental version inside one, and then the vocal version begins side two. It's
Yeah.
just a wonderful transition, especially going into the vocal version. But one thing I had fun with when I first got on Spotify is I did a search for all cover versions of Christmas Time Is Here. Makes a
Yeah.
wonderful playlist and a long playlist too. So many of these songs have been covered so many times, and especially by other jazz greats other
Mhm.
than Mr. Giraldi and his wonderful trio here. Um, but yeah, it's like I say, it's part of my soul by now. It is just the world would not be the same without it. I
Hmm.
just absolutely adore it. Um, like I say, it's hard for me to address each individual song just because it's just so obvious to me. I can't look at it objectively.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but considering the popularity, um, I'm not alone. I do have to say there was a extended edition. I think it was a 4 CD set that came out several years ago. Honestly, it's not necessary because so much of it is, um, 30 seconds of take three or,
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. However, there are certain sections where it does that for like about 5 or 6 tracks on the same song, but it's chronological.
Yeah.
So you can see the development of the song, how the
Yeah. And
song developed in the studio over time.
yeah, the
But I would say,
progression.
yeah, but I would say that's for hardcore fans. It's nice to have it out there, but but just your average Christmas and music lover, just the regular album is just perfect. It's a perfect album.
Okay. Okay. So, Ghosh, your view on the Charlie Brown Christmas?
So I don't obviously have much of a personal connect with this one. In fact, this is the first time I've heard the album as a whole. Probably I have heard some of these pieces as soundtracks to the Charlie Brown films that I watched. That was like 14, 15. That was when we got satellite TV here, and I remember 6 a.m. used to be a ritual for me because like 6 a.m. was the daily slot for Peanuts cartoons, and I would like make sure I never got up at 6 a.m. for anything. I would get up for this.
Okay.
That became like part of my daily ritual, watching that half an hour of Peanuts and then starting my day. So yeah, I probably heard these pieces somewhere in passing, but it's musically not quite my zone. But having said that, I mean, it's not as unpalatable as I find most jazz because there is clearly a very strong musical underpinning here. It is not so given to wild improvisation as you would expect from conventional jazz.
Mm.
And they are actual songs with just maybe a little bit of a jazzy arrangement. So it works well for its context, and I can see why it would be such a beloved album for the season. It makes perfect sense in that setting for sure. And there's some lovely versions of traditional tunes. I particularly like What Child Is This? Which in turn, I mean, if I'm not wrong, it appears to be some sort of variation on Greensleeves. Uh,
Mhm.
and I thought it was very beautifully done. Linus and Lucy is a nice, fun little dance tune. I don't know if you're aware, but there's this YouTube channel which does like edits of Peanuts cartoons set to random rock songs.
Mm.
And there's this whole bunch of clips they have, uh, which show the Peanuts gang dancing around while some random rock
Yeah.
song is playing in the background. I can
Yeah.
just picture them doing these dances to Linus and Lucy. It just fits that mood perfectly. It's a fun listen. I mean, I would still treat it more as mood setting background music for a social
Sure.
gathering or something. I can't really like see myself getting involved in this music, but there's no denying the musicianship. It's fantastic. The thought put into the arrangements and the way you could say they are like somewhat you know overplayed kind of songs in the sense that they are standards, and to bring some new color and new light to that was a challenge, and clearly Mr. Garaldi is up to it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you for that. Well, I mean, you know, if you're, a fan of Christmas and you're an individual that has watched the Rankin and Bass Christmas cartoons along with, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, uh, uh, Frosty the Snowman, and then Charlie Brown Christmas, this music, this release, and I did fail to mention that the from 1988 on, there was an additional track you know at the end of the album, Green Sleeves, that was added on to the release.
Hmm.
To me, this is a classic jazz album. Um, the full stop. I mean, the arrangements of all of these songs are just wonderful. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The inspiration for the idea for the Charlie Brown Christmas came about within 48 hours, where the creator of Charles M. Schultz and his production team were contacted by Coca-Cola to come up with a, a animated cartoon for Peanuts. And from Friday afternoon till Monday morning, they brainstormed, drinking a lot of coffee, I would imagine, and coming up with this idea. And they sent off the idea to the producers of Coca-Cola, the company, sorry, and they got a call back saying, "Let's do this." So then, A Charlie Brown Christmas was born. Uh, I think having Vince Giraldi come up with this score was a masterstroke of an idea. I think it was wonderful. I think, as you can tell, I like the album. I actually have a copy of the CD. It was the best $10 I ever spent um, at HMV at the time. And I just think that all this music flows beautifully together. It's sequenced perfectly. There's nothing out of place uh, on this release for me. It, it's innocence for me, and it's just a beautiful snapshot of a certain point in time. I do believe that, it is a period piece where you really would only play it at Christmas time due to the theme of the album. But I think that from O Tannenbaum to the Christmas song, the original release with the 11 tracks, I think it's, again, a masterstroke of an album. And I think it's wonderfully done and wonderfully executed, you know. So
And if I'm
that's,
not mistaken, I,
go
I
ahead.
I could be misremembering this, but I think Giraldi didn't have that much time
No,
to write and record the music.
no, he didn't. He had I think about 6 weeks to
Something
write
like
and
that.
record
Yeah.
everything, and it's I mean, overall, I mean, the playing on the album is wonderful, in terms of just how the arrangements came together. What we seem to think of as so effortlessly, but we don't really know, right? I mean, in terms of how long it took to get this all together. And I agree with you, Ken. A four CD set of, outtakes is, um, for me, unnecessary. You know, uh, it, but record companies tend to do that. They tend to sort of group
Sure.
these tracks together, and
Yeah.
you know. and it is quite unnecessary for me. But if you want a good slab of in my opinion, classic jazz music, this album is for you. Barring the theme of the album, being a Christmas album, it is at the very heart of it a jazz album.
Yeah,
And I think that it is wonderfully put together, wonderfully executed, and I'll stop gushing, for this release.
yeah,
But that's just my humble opinion and my 4 cents on the matter. You hear about people giving their 2 cents. I just gave four, so I need some money back. Okay, so
there
we're
you go.
gonna we're gonna carry on with the next release on our list here. We have The Who with My Generation, the band's first release, released on December 3rd, 1965, recorded from the 12th of April to the 12th of November, 1965, recorded at IBC Studios in London with a total playing time of 35 minutes and 59 seconds, released on Brunswick Records, in the UK, and the original release was on Decca in the US before switching over to MCA, produced by Shel Talmy. And singles released from the album are the title track "My Generation," "A Legal Matter," "The Kids Are All Right," and "La La La Lies." I will give my opinion of this release at the very end. Ken?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have gone on record saying that The Who is my favorite um, rock band of the British invasion, and I stand by that. I think this is a wonderful debut album. I think um, it spotlights uh, a lot of the Who's strengths from the very beginning as a band and as individual musicians too. But it is also a good snapshot of what was going on musically in England in 1965. 1965 was a blistering year for good music, especially, the British invasion.
Hmm.
Um, I recommend anyone curious to go online and just take a look at the lists of uh, of rock albums that were released in 1965. It's absolutely mind blowing. Um, we live in the dark ages right now compared to years like that. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, uh, there. I'll preface by saying there are several editions of this. Um, in the U.S., the album was titled "The Who Sings My
My
Generation,"
Generation. That's right.
and the lineup is a little bit different, but it's basically the same thing. But since then, there have been extended editions of this. There's a very good two-disc extended CD set. There's a wonderful 5-disc box set,
Hmm.
which unfortunately I was unable to nab at the time of its release, but it's available on streaming. But with lots of other fantastic songs, including a couple of songs that feature Jimmy Page
Yes.
of another British band on guitar.
Yes, if I may just step in, I did fail to mention that performing on the album as additional musicians, you have the one and only Nicky Hopkins on
Oh,
piano,
yeah,
who has a co-write um, on the track The Ox.
yeah,
You also have Jimmy Page of the Yardbirds and Led Zeppelin fame. I do believe you've heard of those bands, ladies and gentlemen, performing lead guitar on Bald Headed Woman. Can't you? That's just a funny title for a song. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bald Headed Woman. And he also does rhythm guitar on I Can't Explain. So, my bad. I forgot to mention that.
yeah, it's
But
fine.
please do continue.
Yeah,
You're,
some of the highlights on this album for me is the track "The Good's Gone," which was inspired by a Ray Davies song. of the Kinks. It's a very simple song, but it's got a very unusual chord progression, at least of pop songs at the time. Um, La 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 Lies is a great song that features Nicky Hopkins on piano. And us here on the channel are big Nicky Hopkins fans. And it really does. His playing on the three songs on this album really do stand out wonderfully. Of course, the title track, My Generation, is, it's just a classic. It's shown up not just on radio, but it shows up in the background of a lot of films, especially films that take place, the settings take place back in the 60s. Um, the song The Kids Are All Right is something that is uh, identified with the band so strongly. And they used that for their documentary film, title of their documentary film in
79,
1978, I believe it was.
79, yeah, yeah.
79, yeah. It's got some wonderful covers. It's got a James Brown cover, of Please, Please, Please. And this is an example of showing what's going on with a lot of the British bands were really into American R&B
That's right.
at the time. And and in many ways, much more than Americans were. It was a kind of a niche genre in the US somewhat at the time
Yes.
compared to top 40. But the Brits were really getting, so it's almost like the British imported American R&B to America.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, and it's fascinating to hear bands like this covered. There's a Bo Diddley cover, I'm a Man. Those tracks seem a little bit strange sometimes, but on this album, but like I say, it's a good picture of what was going on at the time in 65. Um, there was another James Brown cover on this too. I don't mind. But anyway, the song "A Legal Matter" that was one of the singles, I believe.
Hmm.
Great song. It's the only song on the album with Townsend doing the lead vocals. More Nicky Hopkins piano. A wonderful, iconic guitar intro on this song that Townsend um, kind of became known for this time. Very simple, but very catchy. It's like it starts the song with the hook, which is the single guitar hook before the band comes in, and it really does stick in my mind. This is one of my favorites off this album, and it's got one of the best closing tracks, although a little bit bizarre. It ends um, with an instrumental called the Ox. Now, the Ox, for those that don't know, was the nickname for John Entwistle, the bass player. He was known as the Ox.
Hmm.
And this is the only song that's credited to all four members of the band, plus Nicky Hopkins, which is nice to give him the nod to it. Um, it's iconic. It's just a big jam of a track.
Hmm.
They're just jamming away. Each of the members is just kind of cutting loose at the same time. It does give a nice focus on Entwistle's bass and Keith Moon's drums.
Hmm.
Keith really lets go here, and this, as in the other two Nicky Hopkins tracks, really shows off kind of a his honky tonk style playing, and
Okay.
it just really it's very uplifting. There's so many songs in this album are very uplifting. Um, it's almost like it's a party album by the time you put those R&B covers in there.
Hmm.
And anyway, I'm going to stop at this point. It's just a fantastic. It's a fantastic debut album from one of my all-time favorite bands, and uh, it just serves a lot of purposes in my catalog. So in my collection.
That's
Love it.
cool. That's cool. All right. Sagosh, your view on My Generation?
So, if you look at the British bands of the early to mid 60s, I mean, the key bands you would have to like mark them out as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kings, and the Who. Uh, with the Beatles and the Stones being more sort of like, it's unfair to say generation because there will be like a couple of years between them, but there's definitely like a line that separates the Beatles and the Stones from the Kings and the Who. It's like so much happened during those 2 years of 63 and 64 that by the time these bands came around, it was almost like a whole new generation and
Yep.
some of them. So when you compare their debuts, you would have to say that of all the four albums, the one that really stands out as a proper statement of purpose is My Generation. This is a band that have come out all guns blazing. They know what they want to do, and they're doing it with the supreme confidence. It's something. My favorite will always be the Beatles, but you have to acknowledge that at the time of Please Please Me, they were they sort of got into Parlophone by the skin of their teeth. They weren't quite in control of anything, and even as musicians, they were still developing. As songwriters, they were still finding their feet. So I would say that this album comes across as it just exudes, it oozes confidence. If you look at the opener, Out in the Street, just the way that guitar riff opens the album, of course, it loses a little bit of its surprise value because a very similar guitar intro was on their single from the previous year, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere. But if you listen to both songs like side by side, uh, Anyway feels like some Who energy injected into what is essentially a pop song. But when you listen to Out in the Street, it is absolutely wild. It's clearly the more, you could say Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere is more, worldly wise and elderly cousin with a much more like menacing aspect. It just explodes. I mean,
Yeah.
just after that guitar riff, you just have Dalty screaming and out in the street, and the whole band kicks in
Yeah.
with this insane energy. It is. I can only imagine what it must have felt like to hear that in 1965. It's a hell of a way to open your day. The covers are well competently done. I'm not hugely familiar with James Brown's work, so I can't really compare with the originals. But I would say, in fact, that I remember we talked about this before when we were discussing the Tommy versus Quadrophenia thing, and we felt that Daltrey's voice hadn't quite reached that peak on
Mhm.
Tommy. But it's surprising when you listen, when you actually go back and listen to this album, you realize that he was pretty wild and pretty raging from the beginning.
Yeah.
And if anything, the albums down the line may have sort of, toned him down a bit. But on this
Mhm.
album, he is blazing out there. He's totally powerful. And it's not easy to do James Brown cover. You really have to have that confidence in your vocals to be able to pull it off, especially as a band of white kids from the UK. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, full points to them on that.
Sure.
Uh, I think I was more familiar with the US version because I don't remember hearing the I'm a Man cover at all. The version of the album I always had ended with Circles, which is also a fantastic track. Apparently mired in some controversy due to some copyright issues with their previous producer, Shel Talmy. And it was apparently in some attempt to like squeeze him out of royalties. They called it Instant Party or something like that.
Yeah.
Some strange story about it. But it's a hell of a song, and it's actually a bit out of place on the album because it feels like it comes from a different dimension. The rest of it is very rooted in that early, R&B British pop style. But this is like going straight off into psychedelia. It probably would fit more comfortably on something like the Who Sell Out. It felt
Yeah,
like it was like a couple of years ahead of its time. The the whole mood of it. Definitely one of the early psychedelic tunes. Uh, my generation, I mean, what needs to be said about this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's bizarre how a song that basically dates itself so strongly in the lyrics still manages to endure over so many generations.
sure.
I mean, it no longer matters that you have maybe an 80-year-old guy singing, "I hope I die before I get old." It does not matter. It's just the energy of the song that carries it through everything. I mean, it doesn't feel ridiculous. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah,
When you're singing those lines, you have all the energy of youth, and you have all the rage that's encapsulated in that song. It's amazing, and also probably, if not the first, then definitely one of the earliest bass solos in rock music, and what an iconic bass solo! Oh,
Mm-hmm.
amazing
Mm-hmm.
stuff. The more sort of pop-oriented songs also show that the Who are like already at the top of their game songwriting-wise. And you have stuff like "La La Lies" and "It's Not True" and "The Kids Are All Right," which is like absolute, pop gem. It's very, very, Beatlesque. I could imagine a song like that being on a hard day's night. In fact, the
hmm
first time I heard it, like I had come from, I think, Who's Better, Who's Best, one of those compilations.
yeah,
So I'd heard a lot of the later tracks first, and then suddenly The Kids Are All Right pops up. And I was like, this doesn't even sound like the same band. I thought this
yeah.
was the Beatles. It's so pretty and so beautifully executed. I mean, it's like they kept all their, wild sides aside for a moment and said, let's create this perfect pop song, and they accomplished
Mm-hmm.
it. Brilliant. And, songs like Legal Matter and It's Not True and stuff, they really show that, Pete is already very, very confident in his songwriting to be able to inject this, sarcastic kind of humor into the songs. It's not something you expect out of a band that's writing its debut album. It shows that they're really quite mature with their songwriting. And I would also like to second Ken on The Goods Gone. It's a very unusual track. It's not, it came totally out of left field from what was happening at the time. There's just this very ominous sort of quality to it, especially the fact that Daltrey is singing in such a low register. Like the moment
Yeah.
the vocals start, it hits you immediately that something different is happening. And there's this very sort of sinister droning mood with the guitars, and you get the feeling that the goods gone is a little more than just saying the relationship is breaking up. It sounds like
hmm
there's like some serious rot that has set in. It's really amazing how they create that mood with such rudimentary equipment very early people. That's a very underrated, very choice deep cut from the Who. Overall, yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic debut album, and unfortunately, they couldn't quite match it up with the follow up. I think it's a little diffuse. Uh, Again, one of those cases where you try to be a little more democratic with the band, a little moment of songwriting. It doesn't quite come together as perfectly, even though
Yeah.
Quick One also has some fantastic moments. But the very fact that you can debut with an album this powerful and this confident is really says something about you as a band. It's a tremendous statement, absolutely essential. Uh, I'm actually okay with the original album in itself. I have the double disc deluxe edition, but off the top of my head, I don't remember anything really phenomenal coming out of it in terms of original music. I mean, there's a lot of blues, R&B covers and stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
regard those as non-essential because they are already such strong songwriters at this point that they really don't need to, fall back on other people's material.
Yeah.
The stuff they've written themselves is quite strong on its own. At most, probably the deluxe editions include a few more of the singles from that period, which didn't make it to the album. So it's probably worth it for that. But
Yeah.
otherwise, as the original LP stands, it's perfect in itself.
Okay.
Yeah, Shigo, I like what you said about my generation. Um, it doesn't matter, it's an 80-year-old guy singing it. And actually, what they did at some point live, um, they reinterpreted it as a blues number. It's called,
Yeah,
My Generation Blues, and where they broke it down into a slower tempo, kind of a, 8-bar blues type of thing, which really works well too. So very iconic, but just shows their creativity, and you can take a good song and do it several different ways, and it's still a fantastic song. Yeah, great
yes,
take.
there's
Yeah,
the epic
Mhm.
version on Live at Leeds.
That's right. That's
yep.
right. Stay tuned for that episode too, ladies and gentlemen. It's all right.
Hint, hint.
Yeah. Well, you've already watched it by this point, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies. Um, and if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? No, thank you very much, Sikosh, for that. Uh, Interesting take on the album. For me, this has always been a band right from the beginning that challenged the norm, what was considered to be the norm of society in terms of positions in society. They've always been a confrontational band, like us against them, looking at things from the outside, in terms of conforming to what's expected of a new band coming up. At this point in time, a lot of these bands, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and the Who, and say also the Kinks, when they released their debut albums, they were expected to do a lot of covers. Do what's familiar, do what's already known, uh, in order to get your foot in the door musically. But even from the title, My Generation, it's already setting up a line being drawn in the sand. It's us against them. You don't understand where we're coming from if you're past a certain age. Like if you're past 30, you're old. You're done, kind of thing, right? I wish to be 30 again, but that's just me. Even the only similarities between the Beatles and the Who at this point is the fact that the British version of the album is different from the American version of the album in terms of the running
Yeah.
order of tracks. That's the only difference. Right from the get go, you knew that Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey and Entwistle and Moon meant business with these songs. Uh, you knew that this was a band that had musical talent and musical ingenuity and creativity. I prefer the original tracks as opposed to the covers on this album. There's a lot of potency in the arrangement of these songs. In terms of the singles, like again, My Generation. What else can be said about My Generation as a single? It's a classic. Would this be an album I go back to? The jury's still out on that one. I still have to debate whether or not I'd go back to it because I've always been a fan of the later 60s, like, albums like Tommy, and I'm even becoming fond of, the Who Sell Out in terms of, you know, concept albums. And and it should be noted that due to Pete Townsend's frustration of what he saw as the Who's lack of success right away. It was his producers, like Kit Lambert and possibly Shel Talmy, that encouraged him to write more concept pieces, more
Mhm.
album-oriented music, with the Who sell out. Um, this is a good album. It's a strong album. There are really no songs that stand out to me as a per se. I think this album as a whole is a good album. Quite short by today's standards for CD format. 35 minutes and 59 seconds, just under 36 minutes. But they were on the right track with this release. And you can tell if you compare this release to, say, the Beatles' debut release, miles above, miles ahead of what the Beatles were doing at this point in time, even for their debut release. Now, at this point, the Beatles are going into Rubber Soul, etc., so they were miles ahead of the Who at this point in terms of their musical output. But you know what? To me, it's not a competition musically. I would imagine it was to Pete Townsend because he wanted to get ahead of what was happening musically. And I just think that there was a lot of musical ideas on this album. And to flush them out within 12 songs was a hell of a feat to try and accomplish. Whether they did or not, it's not for me to say. It's a good album. Is it one of their best? You know what? It is for me to say. No, it's not one of their best. But you know what I mean? To have a perfect album, first time out of the gate musically, that's a rarity.
Yeah.
It's a rarity. But that's my take on my generation. Our next album on the list, ladies and gentlemen, also released on December 3rd, 1965. Speak of the Devil, The Beatles with Rubber Soul, the band's sixth release, recorded from the 12th of October to the 11th of November 1965, with the exception of the track Wait, which was recorded on the 17th of June 1965. The album as was produced by George Martin, as he produced all of the Beatles' musical output, released on Parlophone and Capitol Records, with a total playing time of 34 minutes and 55 seconds. All markets except North America had one version of the album. Was starting off with the track Drive My Car. Uh, okay. But again, there was a lot of information to go to dive into with this album. And as I go through my notes here, the original North American release, uh, compared to the UK and the worldwide releases, the original North American release of Rubber Soul dropped four tracks from the running order of the album, and those tracks being Drive My Car, Nowhere Man, What's Going On, and If I Needed Someone, and added two other tracks, I've Just Seen a Face, which is track one, and It's Only Love. Now, a little side note. I'm used to the North American version with I've Just Seen a Face, but I'll get into that in a second. My opinion, of course, will come last. Ken, your opinion of Rubber Soul?
Rubber Soul, my second favorite Beatles album. It is so close to being perfect. And I'm speaking of the British version because that's the one I'm most familiar with now. That's what I've been listening to since the 80s. Oh, jeez. I mean, at this point, for me, um, Rubber Soul, along with Revolver, are practically like two greatest hits albums for me. Um, uh, you know, I go through the listing of Rubber Soul, and it's just like, okay, here's an A plus song, here's an A plus song, here's an A plus song. The only one that doesn't do it for me is the track "What Goes On." It's okay, but holy cow, compared to what else is on the album, to me, it just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't hold a candle to them. Um, you've got, you've got rockers here. You've got some incredible slower tempo love songs like "Girl," "In My Life," which if I remember right, is one of Jim Bricker's favorite Beatles songs. And then you've got, another one, Michelle. Just wonderful love songs. And then you've got Drive My Car, um, songs like Nowhere Man, Think for Yourself, um, If I Needed Someone, and a great album closer, Run for Your Life, which, uh, you know, John Lennon, who, you know, who basically it's one of his songs, he poo-poos, but then he poo-poos a lot of Beatles songs. He
Yeah,
did.
he did
And
tend to
it's like,
poo-poo a lot of the Beatles output. Yeah.
and it's one thing when he's talking about McCartney's granny songs, but even stuff, the really good stuff. He was such a Donnie Downer on so much of the Beatles songs, and I don't give any credence to it, but Run for Your Life is a fantastic rocker. This is the Beatles rock and roll that I love. And they started to lose me after Rubber Soul and Revolver because they started getting a little bit too experimental for me. I kind of like my Beatles a little bit more straightforward, and that's fine. To each their own. Um, and then you've got songs like Norwegian Wood, which is very Dylan-esque, so to speak. Um, one of these, and so many of the songs off this album, they paint these wonderful pictures within their stories. They were past the point of just writing love songs.
Yeah.
They were writing little, you know, 2 minute and 45-second stories. I
Hmm.
mean, Nowhere Man is powerful. You got something like Think for Yourself. Incredible message. The Word, and then you've got those other non-love songs. I'm Looking Through You. Yeah, pretty good there. Um, Wait. Incredible, incredible track. They're just again, kind of like the what I said about the Vince Guaraldi, Charlie Brown. This is just so matter of fact, become part of my DNA. If someone says, "Well, what is there good to be said about Rubber Soul?" I'm going, it's like, well, everything. Next topic. Um,
Yeah. Next.
it's
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's just such for me. It's just so obvious. Like I said with the Charlie Brown, I can't be objective about it. Just
Hmm.
because um, it's so fundamental. For Beatles,
Hmm.
it's just absolutely fundamental for me. Like I say it's my favorite second Beatles album
Hmm.
after Revolver, and I always think of those two songs as those two albums together as a wonderful double album. I mean, they
Okay.
were released very close together in a course in sequence. But for me, this is absolutely essential Beatles and essential 60s rock.
I would agree. I would agree. But again, my opinion comes last. All right. So, Ghosh, your opinion of Rubber Soul.
The first thing that hits you about Rubber Soul is like, is this even the same band that did Help 6 months ago?
Sure.
It
I
is
hear what you're
such a
saying.
dramatic difference from what they were doing. I mean, you could draw a few parallels, particularly related to John's work, because he had already started going, introspective and Dylanist on Help, and you could draw some parallels between, the title track of Help and You Gotta Hide Your Love Away, and songs like Nova Man and Girl, which are, you could say, they are sort of more mature versions of those songs. It's like he thought more deeply about the same ideas and came up with some more musically and lyrically interesting ways of expressing himself. There's a lot of personal emotion that you hear in John's songs on this album, which started with Help and it's gone like one step ahead here. Like, in my life, if it's not your favorite Beatles song, or at least in your top five, I think there's something wrong with you. I mean,
Mm.
there are just so few songs which can capture that kind of emotion and that kind of thought process so amazingly. I mean, the guy was at this point, what, 25? And he's talking about his life and his experiences in a way that somebody maybe 30 or 40 years older would struggle to express.
Hmm.
It's just, I mean, you can actually feel a lifetime in those words and the way he expresses them. It's very, very unusual for someone so young. Girl, again, I mean, it is ostensibly a love song, but it's like such a dark love song that it has this, sense of helplessness, as in, like, he's just so obsessed with this girl, and it's destroying him, but he still can't let go.
Hmm.
It's a very rare sort of sentiment at that point in time, and the way it's executed, it's just so gentle and calm and flowing. You don't, until you stop and listen to the lyrics, you don't really realize just how much darkness is floating around in the undercurrents. And then, especially the chorus, the way he just ends it with this breathy sigh. It's like, it's almost like he's throwing up his hands and saying, "Oh, what can I do?
It
I'm
is what it
stuck in this.
is.
I don't want to be here, but
Yeah.
I just can't help myself." And
Yeah.
I don't think that kind of, I don't think any wordless, any, you know, meaningless sort of expression in music has, had that kind of impact. Just that little breath that he takes at the end of the chorus is crazy. Just the idea of doing something like that, let alone executing it to such perfection, it's nothing short of amazing. Norwegian Wood, of course, again, a very personal song, uh, written about an affair that John had, but he didn't want his wife to find out, so he made it all cryptic and weird and inscrutable. And that's his description of the song. And yes, again, very Dylan-esque. It's like a balance of Dylan and a little bit of the Eastern influence, thanks to George's amazing sitar riff. And there is a very strong Dylan connection to this, which I was going to mention on the Dylan video. That essentially Dylan went and wrote a sort of comeback to this song with Fourth Time Around on Blonde on Blonde. I mean, if you listen to Fourth Time Around, the lyrics and the delivery, the meter is exactly the same as Norwegian. You could fit, the lyrics of one song onto the other. And my sense is that he wrote it as some sort of comeback or parody, or hey, I can do this as good as you or better
Mhm.
challenge. Because, of course, Dylan and the Beatles were, running neck and neck at that time for the,
Yeah.
uh, say, the pedestal of, songwriting genius of that period. Yeah, I mean, John's songs absolutely amazing. Paul again discovered a different side to himself here. I mean, he's got his rockers, he's got his, you know, conventional, sugary, sweet love song kind of thing in Michelle, and he's got the really charged up opener, Drive My Car. Again, few people can come up with a chorus as, you know, ostensibly cheesy as beep, 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 yeah, and make it work. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
to feel silly singing that, but
Yeah.
it
Oh yeah.
works. It just works. And the whole song, the humor in it, the whole, you know, the sort of exaggerated ambition in it. That, I'm going to be a star, and yeah, you can be, you can drive my car when I'm there. I haven't got anything yet. I haven't got a car or anything. But yeah, you can drive it when I'm there. That's such a fantastic, send up of the way the business is, even like
Mhm.
people, all these wide-eyed youngsters coming in with these big dreams of being rock stars or movie stars or whatever it is, and because they don't tell you the sequel of what the business does to you before you get to that point of hiring
Mhm.
chauffeurs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a killer way to start the album, and there's some really unusual sort of tracks here. I mean, there is the word, which is this very bizarre sort of funk blues with harmonies, and and then they throw in like this harmonium solo somewhere in the middle. I mean, these are just elements that have no right to be on the same track, yet somehow it works. I mean,
Yeah.
at that time, I remember really being struck by the harmonium because I was like 10 or 11, and the harmonium is an instrument that is very commonly used in Indian music, particularly in film soundtrack music of the Hindi films, Bollywood and the like. And at that age, I was not even aware that it was not an Indian instrument. It was so all pervasive in Indian music. And to hear that on a Beatles song, it really felt very incongruous.
Mhm.
Yeah, these are the kind of things that really, hit you. It- it- these are very strange ways of defying the conventional norms. I will agree with Ken on what goes on. For a song, for the pretty much the only song, I think there's only one other song that has more Beatles uh, credited as songwriters, and that's
Yeah.
equally underrated. Flying with the Magical Mystery too. But this one has three of the Beatles supposedly contributing to songwriting, and yeah, I mean, both lyrically and musically, it's just an average country blues kind of song, and it's just like an updated Act Naturally. Really, it's more of a let's give Ringo his moment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely the weak link on the album. Run for Your Life, as a song, yes, it's a pretty solid rocker. Of late, it's come into a lot of criticism because of the way the lyrics approach the subject, and especially, I think, in the light of John's personal history of violence towards women and stuff, it sort of becomes far more controversial. And in this generation, I think it's safe to say the song is more or less sort of cancelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you try to keep all that aside and treat it as a song for a song, it's pretty killer. I mean, it's got a solid riff and some great harmonies in the chorus,
Yeah.
and a very unusual chorus. I mean, the verse builds up to be a very standard sort of blues rocker, but it takes a total left turn in the chorus. It's not something you would expect at all. So yeah, it's an interesting track. Nowhere Man, again, one of John's shining moments, and the harmonies on that are so exquisite. I mean, just the way it starts with only the voices, it's you have to stop in your tracks when you hear that three-part harmony. Oh, it's absolutely stunning. And then the kind of it's like expressing this confusion of the individual in these strange times, if you will, not knowing, what is the right direction to take. It captures that confusion very well. And, you could say that John may have had someone particular in mind, or he may have just been referring to how, the times itself were, affecting everyone, and we're not really sure what we should be making plans for, or who we should be
Mhm.
making plans. It's that kind of song that really makes you stop and think about, you know, where is life going? Where is the world going? Do we really know what we want out of it?
Mhm.
Very profound thought to have at that age. Amazing. I mean, I could go on forever about most Beatles albums, and I usually do for it. cares to listen. But yeah, it's an
It's okay.
amazing album. It's the first sort of serious statement that we are beyond Beatlemania. We are beyond a pop group. We are beyond just the catchy singles. We are serious songwriters, serious musicians, and we're here with the long haul. In that sense, it is a very serious statement
Hmm.
from the Beatles. They never look back from this
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
would
I
agree.
and I just want to add that Think for Yourself and If I Needed Someone are two of my absolute favorite Harrison songs.
Absolutely. And yeah, we talked about John and George, but John and Paul. But look at George. I mean, like few months ago, he was writing songs like "I Need You," "You Like Me Too Much," which was like, especially "I Need You," which is like literally pleading, saying, "Look,
Yeah.
don't leave me. I can't get along without you" and stuff. And then a few months down the line, he's like, "I don't give a damn. Think for yourself. Do what you want."
Yeah,
That's fast
exactly.
Yeah.
forwarding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's
Well,
matured in those few months and realized that nothing's worth chasing that much.
yeah,
If you're for the right, great, but if you're not, go ahead. Do what you want. I'm
yeah.
not here to solve your problems. Yeah, and I must mention here that it's a very very unusual track in its its melodic and harmonic content. Just the way it starts with that very abrasive sort of fuzz guitar. It's not something you've heard on a Beatles track at that point. And
Hmm.
the whole melody goes in very, very unusual directions. And I think that's the first song that sort of cements George as a songwriter that's totally off the beaten track. He's not John or Paul. He's not
Hmm.
anybody in that mid '60s sphere. As a songwriter, he's totally cutting his own path.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can't think of anybody else who could have come up with a song like that.
Yeah.
And also, Wait, I think a very, very underrated track. I mean, not too many people speak about it. It's a very unusual track, very sort of loosely structured, keeps hopping about from one place to another, and has some very interesting, sonic textures in it. I always found it the one of the most difficult tracks to get into on Rubber Soul because it was really not smooth flowing. It wasn't catchy. It didn't like hit you up front. But you always got the sense that if I invest more time in this, there is some reward in it. And you do when you do get there eventually, you realize it's a very again a very song that's very much ahead of its time. Uh, Experiments with the whole multi-section kind of format that would appear several years later. Really. Uh, I would also like to mention here that while of course the original album is an absolute classic and deservedly so, there is a very very brilliant tribute album called Rubber Folk, which is essentially a lot of fairly contemporary British folk artists from the 90s and 2000s reinterpreting these tracks, and some of them have been done very very interesting ways.
Hmm.
That is an album well worth checking out.
Okay.
Almost none are straight covers of the originals. They've all done their own unique interpretations. These are all some very well-respected and influential artists in the British folk scene. So, particularly, there's a very interesting version of "Wait" by Cara Dillon, the Irish folk singer. And it's it totally takes that song into a different space.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
really
Cool.
very very unusual. Deeply executed. The whole album is fantastic. Any fan of Rubber Soul should be checking it out. It shows you just how open these songs are to interpretation and how much you can do.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you very much for that. I'll check that out. My take on this album, again, I'm familiar with the North American release, with the 12 tracks. I first heard this album when I was 11 uh, at the time, in school actually. And, it obviously it starts off with I've just seen a face, 2 minutes and 4 seconds, just a wonderfully arranged and intricate track. Uh, to me, it's a skiffle track.
Sure.
It's a skiffle song
Yeah.
arrangement. And I've mentioned before, Holly Cole, a Canadian jazz singer, does a wonderful version of this song, slow tempo version, but beautifully done. Holly Cole Trio. She did in 1997 for her release, Deep Dark Heart, I believe it's called. But getting back to this album, it seemed to me, and I'll be very succinct. It seemed to me that this was around the time that the Beatles had met Dylan, and the infamous story of Dylan telling them, "Your songs are shit." Because you're not writing anything original, you're not saying anything with your music. What are you doing? So, boom, they come out with Rubber Soul,
Yeah.
which was miles ahead of what they were doing on Help. Rubber Soul is one of the albums that Roger Taylor from Queen had said that they were quite influenced by with their writing. Rubber Soul and Revolver, the more intricate arranged albums that they had done. When you look at the track listing for Rubber Soul, North American release, Side one, I've just seen a face. Norwegian Wood, This Burn Is Flown. You Won't See Me, which was, I do believe, covered by Anne Murray of all people, from the
Yes.
Canadian content coming
Yes.
in. The Word, Michelle. That's side one. Boom, 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 boom. Killer, all the way. No filler. If you look at side two, as I look at my notes here, Girl, I'm looking through you in my life, which, if you live in Canada, Amazon has a commercial with this done as a wonderful piano arrangement, as a song of reflection,
Okay.
wait, and it ends with Run for Your Life, which would be considered a controversial song. But you cannot deny that the running order for me, I can't deny that the running order for me on the North American version is more compact, more succinct. It goes right for the throat. On the melody scale, on the melody point of view, it is wonderfully done. This was a band that, to me, at this point, looked at themselves musically and said, "What the hell are we doing? We need to step up our game a little bit." And bam, they come out with Rubber Soul. Is it their best album? In my opinion, no, but they were on their way. And if not their best album, it's at least number two for me when I look back on it. The one thing I did notice, this is a minor critique, is that I noticed when I listened to the albums, I listened to both albums back to back. Sonically, I did find a lot of the musical arrangements were coming out of the left channel, and the
Mhm.
vocals were coming out of the right channel. So that mesh of stereo, not there yet. It was not there yet.
Yeah.
And a little side note, the one and only album to be recorded in full stereo was Abbey Road, their
Yeah.
last release in 1969. If you look on their albums, it would say mono also playable on stereo, or
Yeah.
a stereo for stereo effect played on this kind of. So just a little footnote, but this is a wonderful album of melody, of intricacy, of richness and complexity in the arrangements. If you like that, if you like the more complex, intricate Beatle songwriting, this album is indeed for you. And I kid you not. So if you haven't checked it out yet, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Pause this and go and check it out. And come back and tell us in the comments what you think of this album. You will not be disappointed. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Now,
Yep. Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, we are jumping ahead 10 years to the exact month, not the exact date, about 10 years to the exact month, December 1st, 1975, for the release of Styx and Equinox. The band's fifth release, released to A&M Records, recorded in 1975. Total playing time of 34 minutes and 32 seconds. In my notes, I have this album marked the final appearance of the original guitarist John Surilewski. 8 tracks in total. I'll give my opinion at the very end, as is customary. Ken, your view on Equinox?
Okay. This was my intro to the band back in high school, 1975. Of course, this, like you said, this is John Kurolitzky's last album with them before Tommy Shaw joins in the next album. Dennis DeYoung remains at this point to be the primary songwriter and singer. This is also when they were still somewhat prog. This is probably, if I've been known to say that I'm not a Styx fan. That's not entirely true. More accurately, I'm not a Dennis DeYoung fan. Based
Ooh,
on,
for some
I
people, those are
know,
fighting
I
words.
know they are,
But
but that's based on where he took the band later on. Into the, um, Kilroy was here and all of that. But I'm not the only one. After all, several members of the band weren't a fan of that time either. So there you go.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like this earlier prog, and this song. I've never bought this album, but listening to it in preparation for this video, um, I remembered very well every song off this album but one.
Mm-hmm.
The young people can't relate to this, but one of the best things about growing up in the 70s was um, the development and the new radio format called AOR, album oriented radio.
I know where you're going.
Radio stations were privately owned; they weren't owned by big corporations. Radio stations were allowed, and even and maybe even especially individual disc jockeys themselves were allowed to program what they played. And so, where I grew up in North Florida, I heard all but one of these songs on the radio frequently. And that's besides the 2 singles that came off of this. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I
Those,
like,
excuse me, the two singers
yeah,
being Light Up and Lorelei.
and Lorelei, yeah.
Yes.
And it opens up with the album opens up with Light Up. And, you know, this is, to me, and this is my flavor of prog. I'm not real big on, the where prog went at some point with the experimental and the, what do you want to call, metal prog and all those others. This is they were doing this right. Um, Great opener for this. Uh, the one song that was sung by James Young, Midnight Ride, is the only song that's pretty really straightforward rock, pretty much. That's the one I didn't hear, and probably I may have, but I just don't remember it. But the other songs, Light Up, Lorelei, um, Lonely Child, Born for Adventure, especially Sweet Madam Blue. My radio station played that so often, and what they would do is they would actually play the song Prelude 12, which is a short instrumental, um, they would play those two tracks together because they really, in my ear, they really do belong together. And Sweet Madam Blue, in addition to being an incredible album closer, really does demonstrate a lot of what the band could really do. I mean, it was proggy, it was rocky, incredible harmonic vocals. Especially when you get to the end, you get layered harmonies on top of layered harmonies and echo harmonies and whatever. And it's just a powerhouse. All these songs are just powerhouses. Um, and I had just forgotten over the decades, just how good this album was. And that's the thing, when a good album comes out in within your generation, and you hear it on the radio a lot and you like it, it's really easy to kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
Hindsight, looking back, 40 years later, um, 50 years later, all that, it really does ring differently. So this album, in addition to, especially the Charlie Brown album, a strong time capsule for me, in remembering those years, those high
Mhm.
school years. I listened to this album and I just mental images of high school and high school friends and all those come to mind.
Mhm.
Um, as far as Styx is concerned, this is probably my exception to their catalog as a whole. I
Mhm.
really do. This one particularly just rings true in my memory. And like I said, this was before they went into more of a pop, theatrical pop kind
More
of style
more
that,
mainstream. Yeah.
yeah, and that just didn't vibe for me quite as much. But then at the same time, um, I've often, very often in my life, um, kind of shied away from a lot of mainstream. I was always looking for something a little bit different. There are exceptions, of course.
Mhm.
But anyway, so to me, the success of this album, I think, is very well earned. Um, I miss those days of AOR radio when in the 70s, a radio station would just put on the first track of an album and let it play through. Those were the days. So, you know, I'm an old fart, so that's just me. You can
Okay.
keep your streaming, just play a whole album on radio. Great
All
album.
right. Thank you, Ken, for that opinion on Styx Equinox. All right, so Ghosh, your opinion on this album.
So this is again, I'm sort of new to Styx. This is the first album I've heard in its entirety. I'm familiar before this with a handful of singles from like Paradise and you know Roboto, Come Sail Away, all that kind of stuff. So the side one was definitely musically interesting. I'm not a very big fan of the vocals. They're a little take or leave. Not super pleasant to me anyway. Uh, the style is just a little too thin and too high for me to consistently appreciate. But musically, I can't fault side A particularly. It's nice and proggy. Musicianship is fantastic. I really like the Moog synth sounds that they have on this one. It's like classic 70s, and I love that sound. The songs themselves are well crafted, well written. There's some interesting stuff happening there. Particularly, one that I found most interesting was Mother Dear. Has some interesting changes and this keeps you there. Side B is it's more straight ahead, uh, 70s hard, arena rock kind of thing. At least the first couple of tracks. Sweet Madam Blue, of course, goes beyond that. I would say it has, bears more than a passing resemblance to Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
At least the initial part. I mean, that was my
Yep.
first feeling as soon as I heard this, started listening to the song. Okay, this is almost sounding like a ripoff. Of course, it goes into some interesting places after that, and again, it's a well executed song. So yeah, those two tracks of side B are a little bit of a downer, and the vocals overall are not my favorite. Uh, but yeah, I mean, this is definitely a band that has the chops, and it's not a bad album. I might be enthused to look at more of their stuff later on. I presume before this, I think the consensus seems to be that after this, they sort of went to pot.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Sorry, you said the consensus.
Consensus on Styx seems to be that after this album, they sort of went to pot. So I guess I should be exploring the stuff before this rather than after this.
Well, I mean, um, well, no, I mean the consensus is with Sticks with this is that they went to in more of a, as Ken said, more of a commercial uh vein. I would agree and disagree in some spots, but yeah, yeah. Well, it's up to interpretation, I guess, in terms of what's considered commercial. But yeah, yeah. So, sorry, I didn't mean. Did you have more to say?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay. Okay. Well, for me, I have this on vinyl, and I also have this on CD as a double shot, two album package with Equinox and Crystal Ball.
Mm.
Um, the follow up featuring the first album featuring Tommy Shaw.
Yeah.
For me, listening to this album, I was pleasantly surprised. Revisiting it again, again having it on the original A&M vinyl release, I really didn't give it much attention. But you know what? Shame on me. I think this is a
Yeah.
great album. I think the uh, s- side A with the triple play, as I say, power shot of, Light Up, Lorelei, and Mother Dear.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
hello, we've arrived. Give me a joint. I'm good to go. It's like, it is rock. It is melodic. It is prog. Uh, John Kurlewski's vocals on Mother Dear combined with Dennis DeYoung's. I think it's melodic as all get out. I think it packs a punch right in the ribs that you don't expect. Uh, Lonely Child is okay. I think that they kind of lose me on side two with a Midnight Ride. I'm not a fan of James Young's vocals. I'm not. It's,
Me neither.
sorry to say. Born for Adventure is good. I do like the fact that, they have Prelude 12, the instrumental, the Kurulewski track at 121. As I said in a previous episode of Top 10 Rock Instrumentals, I do think that a good instrumental piece of music, as I agreed with Ken, strategically placed, does add a different dimension to an album.
Does.
Overall, it can act as a wonderful introduction. If placed in the center of an album, in the middle of an album running order, it can act as a good respite between the tracks that came before it and for the tracks that come after it to get you ready for the tracks that come after it. And if placed at the end of an album, it can act as a wonderful ending to a great album that you're listening to. I think Sweet Man in Blue as a final piece, I think it's strong, it's melodic, it's heavy, it's bombast and epic in its scope and arrangement. With them yelling out America. I'm not going to sing it because I can't sing for shit. But the arrangement on the song is huge and it's in its scope and presentation and arrangement. I think that this album overall, with the minor exception of Midnight Ride, is strong in it on the whole.
Yeah.
Um, do they go into more of an more pop oriented vein with Crystal Ball and with
Yeah, Grand Illusion.
the Grand Illusion? Sorry,
It's
ladies and
okay.
gentlemen, I am so sorry. With the Grand Illusion, I love the Grand Illusion, but you know what? I need to invest in more time in their albums like Mind of Miracles, etc., and Crystal Ball, and this album. I think it's fantastic. I think this is a fantastic release. If you want an album that is intricate and melodic, heavy and cinematic in its approach and arrangement, this album is for you. And forgive me again for the brain fart on the Grand Illusion. My apologies. It won't happen again. What's in my coffee? But there you go. It is only coffee in my cup, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that this is a great album, and I think people should. I think it needs to be given more attention.
I think so.
That being said, Lorelei and Light Up are still played on FM Classic Rock Radio to this day, along with Come Sail Away, which I do love Come Sail Away, but I think that Equinox needs to be given a little more attention than what it's been given thus far. So that is my opinion on Equinox, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, do you guys have anything more to add to the albums we discussed?
No, four great albums.
Good.
Good way to end the year.
Really good way to end
Yeah.
the year. Ladies and gentlemen, all the albums we talked about on this episode can be streamed on YouTube for your listening pleasure. Um, and please put your comments down below on these albums. We've covered the gamut from jazz to melodic progressive rock. We've covered the gamut on this episode if you really think about it in terms of the scope of the music that we've talked about. So please again let us know your opinions on these releases. I want to thank Sagosh and Ken for joining me on this adventure. It's always fun doing episodes with these two gentlemen, and we will be back with more episodes to come. Uh, Sagosh, Jim Bricker, and I are going to be doing another episode of Now Hear This for the ending of 2025, and we're going to be doing more episodes to come as soon as we can get them to you. And please click like and subscribe to keep yourselves on top of any new content we've got coming up. We've got more shows coming up for 2025, 2026, sorry, and beyond. It's one of those days, ladies and gentlemen. There is only coffee in the cup, so please forgive me for that.
It's
We'll
probably
see
the
you.
problem. Yeah.
There you go. I need to put something else in the cup. So please look after yourselves and one another, and we'll see you soon on the Music Den. Have a great day. Bye for now.